Welcome to the Foray Music Podcast. I'm Charlie.
I'm Alexandria.
My name is Amy.
On this week's pod, bringing improvisation to the center of music teaching and learning, Miles Davis being secretly sensitive about his speaking voice, listening to people the way we listen to music, new music, and more, and music. Roll it.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. First off, how's everybody doing?
Doing great. I went to the Village Vanguard for the first time last week, and I saw Peter Bernstein and Sullivan Fortner and Doug Weiss and Al Foster, the legendary Al Foster, and it was incredible. So happening, so killing. It's what I needed.
What were your vibes on the Vanguard? Like what was it like what you expected it to be?
No.
The
I
actual
was like,
I've never been there either, actually.
it's like, well, first it was like actually surprisingly good seating. Like there wasn't like a bad spot in the place, I don't think. And
well, it's so tiny.
Yeah.
It's hard.
yeah, it is very tiny, but the sound is great. I was expecting
Mhm.
the sound to be not good.
Right.
Because like you usually go to like a jazz bar and you're like, oh, I wish I could hear the people, and it actually sounded good. But the sound was amazing. Everybody sounded great. People were quiet because they
Ooh,
don't serve
nice.
food. I don't know if they serve food, but we just had like a drink, and that's why, like people aren't clamming their utensils. You just like, sipping on your little drinky drink. And yeah, afterward, everyone was so nice. Like, I have this picture where I look exactly like Sullivan Fortner. I get that a lot, that I look like Sullivan Fortner. So my friend did this app thing where you can turn yourself into a man. And she turned me into a man, and I showed him, and he was so happy.
You showed him that? Because
Yeah.
I've seen that picture.
He was he was like, I get this a lot, but like this is for real. You look exactly like me.
We should show the Foray listeners because it actually looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
I
And
can vouch for that.
he was so surprised. We were laughing at each other for at least like 5 minutes.
That's awesome.
Good
I love
vibes.
that.
Yeah, but the Vanguard is just like a basement, and it's
Yeah.
like tiny and do they still do do you have to still do like drink tickets? Like do you have to get a certain number of drink tickets or something, or you have to buy
It's like a 1 drink minimum.
yeah, cool.
Yeah. And the drinks like are reasonably priced. It's like $8.
Yeah. That's-
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Wow.
think they're anything super fancy, right? I think I used to always just get red wine because that was the cheapest thing on the menu.
I
Like
love
generic
that.
red wine or something, and I'd be like, and then I'd just sit there and be like,
Yum.
what now? I
Oh,
don't really
yeah.
want to drink that, but I just don't want the waitress lady to be like really mad at me and yell at me or something.
Yeah.
Do this, but yeah, it's like a basement. It's like feels like everything's covered in kind of like carpet or something, or just
Yeah.
it's really dead room, which is like perfect.
Hmm.
All like the modern jazz clubs, like there's one here in Portsmouth, and it's really beautiful and stuff, but I just think it's too big. I think like the ceilings are too high. It's like they I don't know, they're going for some sort of weird combination of things. It's like it's totally different than a rock club. Like you don't I think the sound should be different than a rock club, and it should be different than a classical music thing, but like
Yeah.
most modern clubs kind of do something in between. They're like, what if it's like a
Yeah.
rock club, or like like a rock, like just like a where there's going to be really loud music played, or they're like, what if it's like a small like theater, like where classical, or like where classical music is going to be held, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
it doesn't really work. Like a nice basement with like a lot of like velvet curtains everywhere, like that kind of
Jazz.
that's cool. Amy, how about you? What's up with you?
Hey.
Hi.
Well, this week, as I'm adjusting to living in New York and having a full-time job, I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything. So my thoughts this week have to do with when I can practice. And I was talking to my mom about it because I was just thinking about maintaining my instrument and all of these things. And I think I'm gonna start warming up in the car. I have some time alone in the car during my work day, and it's like an hour. So I think I might just, I mean, obviously I'm gonna have to pay attention to the road, but I might see what it's like to warm up a bit in that way, because I just haven't been feeling balanced yet. But I think it just takes being creative. That's what I'm going to tell myself. And I knew it was going to be a grind. You know, this is what that is. I have to just remind myself, this is what the grind feels like. So gross, but you know what I mean? People are like, you're going to be really, stretched. And I'm like, I know, that's the point. And now I'm like here, and it is, and I'm feeling it, but it's good.
Yeah. I've definitely definitely warmed up in the car, and even kind of felt like I practiced in the car.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've been waiting, and I've just been singing some bebop heads the past couple days, and I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. So perhaps there'll be more of that.
Scrapple from the apple.
Oh my gosh.
Scrappling.
Yes.
Well, speaking of being creative, we kind of kicked off at least our internal version of the songwriting club this last week, and I think that was really cool. I think that was like really, I think more than anything, it was just a good like reminder to all of us that we can kind of do it, and it was like a nice little community moment where everyone was like,
Yes.
"Oh, that was so cool," and blah blah blah, and just like having that deadline and everything, it was really great. Now I'm very stressed out though because I haven't had time to write at all this week. So I'm like, we're turning our songs in on Friday. Like I'm like, I will write a song on Friday. Like,
Yeah.
That's when I have time. That's kind of terrifying, but it's cool because otherwise I wouldn't make that space on Friday even to do it. I'd just like stare at the TV or something, or just zone out or do whatever. But so it's nice. It makes me make space. At least that's how I felt, which is cool. But it still feels like lacking. It still feels like, oh man, I wish I could make more space still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. What was the two of yours experience with the songwriting club, or kind of trying to do that thing?
I kind of just put on I like tapped the record button, and then I just started kind of like free improv. And then like I got into something, and so what y'all got was literally me figuring something out on the spot, but I liked it enough. And so I clipped the ends that made zero sense and went back to the like core of idea of what I was thinking. So I liked that, like just free improvisation into some idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. I like that. And no pressure with writing words or anything. I feel a lot of pressure when I have to write lyrics.
I just really like that there aren't rules, because last week I had like this song that I'd actually like written, the loop song. I just put that one in there. This week though, it's probably going to be very different. Like it's going to be more of like what can I write in like 10 minutes? So I like that there aren't any rules though, because it's like, cool to the artist too, to see like, okay, this is a song that I spent this much time on. This is a song that developed in this way. And I really liked the community moment you were saying. It just made me want to like hang out in person.
Yeah.
Because the group chat just kind of lit up with like, just like, oh, I uploaded it. And I'm so used to having to like take action on texts and like whatever. That's a whole can of worms for me. I just like, my phone and me are not really on good terms. I'm trying, so formal apology to the world, but I just liked I like seeing that. It was just very special. And I'm glad that it's going to be ritualistic too. Like I'm trying to give myself patience as I get into these routines, but I'm grateful for things that are going to help me do that. And I think this is one of those things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the patience that for ourselves, that's a really important thing. I haven't thought about that for a second, and you just said that, and I was like, that's true.
Yes. Because
Beautiful.
I feel so much patience from everyone in my life. So
Right.
grateful for that. But I should also give it to myself. And I want people to give it to themselves too.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of like the treat others like you would like to be treated, or it's like treat yourself like you're treating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that seems to be kind of more the vibe. Well, at least when you're trying to be nice. There's some people out there that need to treat others like they would like to be treated. They need to focus
Correct.
on a little bit more, but for the nice people out there, I know you're listening.
Yes.
Okay, let's hop into this week's newsletter.
Let's do it.
Woohoo! Dun, dun. Is there music here? Dun, 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 dun. All right. Our first A has to do with bringing improvisation to the center of music teaching and learning. This is close to my heart because this is my dad's TED Talk, which I previously
Dad has a
sometimes
TED
I'm just
Talk,
like,
totally right.
I'm like, sorry, who? But no, it's amazing. Like I've learned so much from him, and he really has a lot to share about improvisation and creativity, and how to center it in teaching and learning music. So basically, the thing I'm amazed about too, though, is how concise this TED Talk is, because it covers like so much information, like semesters worth of information in like 12 minutes. So I guess the cool part about this to me is that it's kind of just a starting point. But it doesn't necessarily skim the surface. Like it's a pretty deep dive, I would say. I guess like the focus from my eyes is he talks so much about learning by ear, and making sure that the way that we're teaching music is focused there, rather than this idea that notation comes first, I guess. Because what he says is that notation is a symbol of music. And so I'll just drop a quote. What happens is that students have these experiences where they're not invited to improvise or create so much. And in fact, much of what is taught actually impedes someone's natural inclination to improvise. So I guess then like the other part that I think about is just the way that I was like brought up happened to be in this type of like philosophy. So by the time I was faced with theory and things like this and notation, I had already had this like childhood of learning by ear. So I guess the fascinating thing to me as like a young artist, and also I would consider myself an educator, new on the scene, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's something that I'd like to keep shedding, is teaching, and how to like do this for people, because I feel really lucky just for the way I was brought up. But it's definitely a lot of cool things. It talks about fear and trying to get rid of that, and the idea that improvisation can just be, it can transcend genre. Like he talks a lot about, I think he's pretty proud of the fact that like a lot of the work, there's all sorts of musicians from different walks of things of life and of like musical experiences that end up kind of like working with him. So yeah,
That's pretty great.
Yeah, I love this TED Talk. I think I had seen part of it before when I first met you. I was like, let me watch Amy's dad's TED Talk.
oh no.
Because it was kind of like, oh, her dad teaches at Eastman and stuff. I was like, oh, that's really cool. But yeah, this made me think about my music education too. Like just coming up through like elementary school, and no one in my family is musical. So in any sort of like in any sort of serious way or something, or even in just like a not serious way, really. And so like I learned about music through school, and like thinking about like elementary school, like we focused a lot on learning how to read music. Like like if I think back to what we did, we mostly just kind of learned how to read music. And having done a little bit of elementary school stuff, especially recently, like it's kind of crazy too how much it is about reading, but also how much like discipline is kind of taught in
Mm.
elementary school music ed, where it's just like okay, now it's time to play. Nope. Like you put the Orff instruments out there, and it's like you have mallets and stuff, and it's like okay, now it's
Oh
time
my
to play.
god.
Ready, everyone play. Bong, 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 and it just is so like so sterilized kind of a thing.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
just like, does anybody feel like this is music right now? I do not recognize this as music. And
There's a story of my brother asking for a fa in the Orff instruments. He was like, "Can I have a fa?"
can I please have a fa?
Yeah, but like exactly what you're
Can I
saying.
get
It's so like
some yeah. Got some tension in this situation. Just like all whole steps and thirds. Um, yeah, and I don't know. It's just like don't no one play like you only play when it's time to play, and it's all that kind of stuff. Um and I don't know. Too much of that gets kind of like extrapolated, and just it just like you just go to college at some point, you feel like you're doing the advanced version of that, where it's just especially if you're doing classical music, I think in particular,
Yeah.
obviously. But even in even in our experience in jazz education, but it's kind of just like play, don't play, play, don't play. It's just like you just kind
Yeah.
of feel like you're always at a stoplight. It's just
yeah.
like, oh, there's nothing
I
cool
feel
happening at a
that.
stoplight.
No.
No, I feel that. I had like I guess like when I think on like same Charlie, like when I think on my like musical experience, like specifically instrumental wise, like you automatically get like a method book and you figure out how to read. You haven't even like experienced the instrument yet. It automatically like I remember the first note I learned was a D on the flute. First off, a flute shouldn't have been in my hand because it was bigger than me. But I remember that was my relationship with the flute. I played a D.
Yeah.
You
My
know,
dad will
and
put I have so many anecdotes, but he put a sticky note in one of the books that I got in band,
Mm.
and he wouldn't let me look at the beginning part. Because at the beginning they put like all of and this is like like he wanted me to start with like tunes. He's so centered on like learning tunes and like like making sure everything's connected to that. So
Yeah.
that like he always talks
Yeah, it's
about
weird.
how all the books have this like front half. No.
No,
No.
no, I like that. But then, like singing experience, like I grew up like in the church, and they could read, but it was mostly like altos. Here's your part. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-da. Sopranos. Here's your part. Ba-ba-da-da-da. And then,
Yeah.
or like the pianist would play, and he's like, "Do you hear your parts?" And we're like, "Sure." I don't know. We're 5 years old. We're gonna
I
play.
love imagining
We're gonna
that.
sing.
I
We're
love
gonna.
imagining little Alexandria in church.
Like it's not like we were singing like the proper like stuff. We were like singing Kirk Franklin in church, so it's like really like why are we singing this? But that like it's vastly different from this is D, this is
Mhm.
E, and this like so I guess like it cultivates a different relationship with your instrument too.
Well,
Which is
and
weird.
that to me is more musical anyway. Like,
Yeah.
if music is supposed to be about interaction and I don't know, just being present in the moment, to me it's like that the church experience feels more I guess like genuine than this like, play a D. Like,
D.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, even like beginning piano lessons, it's like you experience middle C and then like the fifth away from middle C for like
Yeah.
months and months and months, most people. Or you do
Yeah.
like the black keys and you do the pentatonic thing and you play like
Mm.
da-da-da-da-da, like the like Jolly Old St. Nicholas or something on the black
Yeah.
or whatever. And there's just like there's this huge instrument there that can do all this like crazy stuff, and you're just like
Yeah.
just right in the nose. Cool. It's like, like I want to play the piano, and you go take months of lessons, and your parents are like, well, what can you play? And I'm like, Mary had a little
Yeah.
just with one hand. Now switch to the other hand, Mary. It's just like this is not cool at all. Like,
Nah.
Lower octave now, Mary.
They play it in all octaves, like da. I mean, I think everything I do now, I really learned in like my friend's basement. Like we were in like basically a garage band kind of a thing. And like everything I do now musically is derived from being down there and like listening to stuff and trying to figure it out, and like people switching instruments and like looking
Yes.
through weird guitar magazines and like trying to like someone would kind of try to learn a part of a solo from that, and then you would like we'd be writing the dumbest songs of all time. I wrote like 4 songs about King Kong when I was in middle
Oh
school.
my
It was
God.
That's
here's the
amazing.
whole King Kong suite. They're just the dumbest.
Please, can I hear it?
No, it's all erased from. It's been
No.
swept. It's been it's been scrubbed from.
I'm like, can I get my hands on like a Charlie EP? Like a
King Kong.
CD.
Back in the day, yeah. It's like
King
there's just, I
Kong
don't know.
EP.
Yeah, there's so many. I don't know. I've just made so many EPs. Like I was just like there was a time where I was making a new like 4-song EP like every month. There was probably
Are
like
you
18 months
serious?
where I did that. It's all garbage, but it's like that's how I just figured. Like that's how I just figured how to do anything really. Like even like
I
what
love that
chords
though.
were or something. It was just like doing stuff like
So
that.
great.
Yeah. That is
All,
amazing.
I want to really stress that it all sucked. It was all horrible and sounded weird and was probably like upsetting. Like if you listen,
But you have to write the
No.
garbage to get to the good stuff.
Exactly.
So you wrote out all the. I mean, it
I'm
was
still-
probably
I'm
not
still in the
garbage.
process.
You went from like garbage to garbage to like beautiful.
I'm fine with the French garbage. The French garbage is like I'm happy with that. I'll settle for that. The
I
garbage.
love that.
The French garbage. Oh my gosh.
Do we want to talk about another TED Talk?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
TED Talk, TED Talk, TED
TED
Talk.
Talk week. Big week. for
Um,
TED.
Alex
Let's
is
get
gonna
that.
write the next music.
oh,
Like,
TED Talk, TED
yeah.
Talk, TED Talk.
Perfect.
Anyways, yeah. So I was struggling to find something, but handy dandy NPR. So this guy, I don't want to mess up his name, so I'm going to say
It's
Mr. Her.
Rishikesh Hirway, I think is how you say it. I'm a big
I
fan.
think-
Charlie.
Mr. Earway. There we go. The title of it is What You Discover When You Really Listen. So I was like, what could this get into? Because I've been struggling with that lately. Not only like, first off, listening to music as just like listening to music as a musician. I prefer to listen to silence when I'm a musician because I feel like I listen to music a lot, but like I need to listen to music. And then listening to others, I've caught myself checking out a lot of the time. So I was like, oh, okay. And so he first starts off with like chatting to us about how to listen to music and the layers within it that allow the music to have a deeper meaning than us just listening at a surface level, which most of us listeners do is like listen at the most surface level instead of like really grabbing into the nitty gritty of the music and what each artist intentionally puts in there to ensure that they have their message coming across. And so he like has a whole whole podcast on that called Song Exploder. You should check it out. Song Exploder. I said that
Song Exploder. She's like, Song Exploder.
okay.
Anyway.
And then I learned this new word, extrapolate, and so I wanted to use it. So he extrapolates this idea, which means it's actually like kind of like a math term, but to take this idea and extrapolate. How can you? That's like you use the word as a definition. But he takes this and he puts it into another concept, which is like listening to others. And the tips that he gave us was when you're listening to another person, you should, 1, be open to new ideas, which I loved because I like to be right and I don't like to listen, but be open to new ideas. 2, stop multitasking.
That's huge.
That is huge.
I don't even know, like, wow.
Yes. 3, show you're engaged without bringing the attention back to yourself.
Damn. Oh, wait. Is that allowed? Anyways, you can bleep me out.
But that was Yeah. I was just like, these are three very simple things, but I was like, I don't do any of these three consistently. But one, open to new ideas. Like, when you're talking to someone and they maybe don't agree with what you're saying, but I feel like most people nowadays aren't open to listening to new ideas, or some ideas that differ from theirs. So that I liked that value that he placed on that. And then two, stop multitasking. I automatically thought about my mother, because she'll be on her phone like answering email while I'm like asking her a question. I'm like, hi mom, like, are you you good? Like, did you hear my question? I love you. But it's like one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm like talking to someone and they're like on Instagram or something, or on Facebook. But I try not to do that. I try to like flip my phone over so they have full attention. And then three, show you're engaged. I feel like whenever, like we just did it, like when you brought up your dad, and we are like, in our musical education, which is, I think, is still a great thing to do. But also like maybe someone is telling their story and it's their story, and we can just leave it at their story. We don't have to say, oh, this is part of my story too. We can just say, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was great.
Sorry, those are my thoughts as I talked really quickly.
That gives me really excited. I don't know, that's heavy. I think that's, it probably leads to deeper listening and people feeling heard and understood and important things. Am I going to cry right now? I like these a lot. I think I'm going to shed these.
Me too.
Now I'm like analyzing everything.
It's like no one wants to talk. Like, that was great.
That was really nice.
No, bringing the attention back to self. But no, yeah.
One of the ways that I've thought too about being a better listener. I mean, I think these are all great. The show you're engaged without bringing attention back to you. I think that one is like, that's my Achilles heel or something with this, because it's just like, I think that like, oh, if I say something that's kind of related to what you're talking about, then that shows that I understand what you're talking about. But I also kind of think it's kind of like the ego-y teacher thing of me or something, like, well, let me give you another example of that. But I always try to do this thing where it's like just trying to summarize what the other person has kind of like said. But I think that's kind of hard sometimes too. But the multitasking thing, for real.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. Like nowadays, like I used to just like be on my phone and like think that I could listen to people, or like be on my phone and think I can even listen to a meeting or something. I'm like, I'm not really listening. But like mindlessly scroll, or like someone's FaceTiming me and I'm like texting another person back, or it's really hard to like be in the moment nowadays. Yeah. So really like intentionally listening to this person.
There's so much input and output going on. And I will always say I don't think it's possible. I just don't think it's possible without turning into anxious wrecks. That sounds really dark, but I genuinely think that if we tried to do every input and output that comes in and out, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah. There used to be, I don't think that this is the vibe anymore, but there used to be all this like gendered based things about this, where it's like men can't multitask. They're like, I don't know. That like women are great at it or something. It's like they do it all the time. Like they're happiest when they're multitasking.
Oh my god.
Men are happiest when they're just like staring at a rock or something and like hitting it with a hammer. I just don't think anybody's like super stoked about multitasking, really. I think it's like almost kind of it does seem like it's like we're almost required to do it.
Well, isn't it actually impossible? I feel like maybe there was research that you're not actually multitasking. Your brain is like fragmenting. That's like part of the danger, is that there's so much fragmentation, so it feels like you're multitasking, but you're not.
Yeah,
you can only do one thing at a time.
It's not equally divided. Like your attention
really
is going
is
more
like
to something.
or something like that. Sorry, listeners.
Sound effects by
Anyways.
Amy Azzara.
Thing, it was a zigzag thing she did with her hand. Just something.
I'm still learning this format.
Yeah, and it's like if you get distracted if you're working on a task,
Mm-hmm.
like it takes you like a half an hour or something to get back to where you were kind of like mentally. I've been playing with some of like the do not disturb things.
I love.
And I haven't quite figured it all out yet because I right now it seems like I'm kind of like coming at everything with like an atom bomb. It's like I either turn everything off for like the whole day, and I'm just like, and someone's like, I was trying to, there was a thing, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know, I didn't see that. It was like I have a little moon up in the corner of the thing. So I'm like trying to figure it out, but I have like one that's like set for practicing and for reading, and so I've been kind of trying to use that, but partly too, I think it's there's this thing where it's like, oh, you can train dogs, but you can't train people. This kind of thing where it's like you can train your dog to like do the right things and like not be horrible. But then like if it's around people that like don't know the rules or are gonna like,
Yeah.
be crazy, then it's like that it all goes out the window. And it's like I found that I can put on the do not disturb stuff and do all that, but it's like I also need to like have conversations and like communicate like what the deal is with the people that are used to being able to have like access to me like 24 just constantly 24/7 and have it be pretty instant, like just be like, hey, I'm trying this new thing because it's really been hard for me to focus on blah blah blah, and I get like really easy distracted, especially if it's like things that are hard to do, like basically anything creative. It's like my whole body is trying to get me out of this. Like it's trying like it's trying to get me out of having to try to do this like right now because it's hard. And so it's like, well, I've already cleaned all the dishes and I did the whatever and I moved everything else around. So it's like this is the last thing for me to do and try to make this thing. And then like someone pings you like, hey, blah blah blah, what do you want for dinner? Like, hey, do you have this like document? And I'm just like, I definitely have that document. I definitely have very deep thoughts about dinner. If that means I don't have to like work on this project.
No, I feel you. I have it like on a schedule too.
Really?
Yeah.
I should try that.
So that like well, some people's texts I'll always get. And that's what you were saying, like, and like whatever. Like, but it's caused me to be more organized. I think this is the most organized I've ever been in my life. I'm usually like aloof. Like very much aloof. And now
You're not aloof.
no.
Okay.
When it comes to
okay.
my own schedule, it used to be so bad. But now I've like actually open emails, I flag them.
Yeah.
The whole thing. They have folders now. I'm getting better.
This is what I love is like I just think people are so quick to be like, well, you're like this. And I'm like, listen, guys, people, if they really want to work on something, they can work on it. So
I'm getting there.
I love that for you.
I'm getting there. I even bought like file folders today. Anyways,
Oh, yes.
I'm getting there.
See, I love that.
But like I can get notifications from these, 5 emails always, or like from
I think that's smart.
I always, sorry, Mike, I'll always get a call
Yeah.
except for like spam risk.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts is not being able to, like, I think it's important to set priorities or boundaries, maybe perhaps with the phone, because you do that in your life. So
Yeah.
the phone is kind of becoming like a huge way to communicate. So it's kind of, I feel like that's actually really important.
The phone, it turns out phones are kind of a thing. So
Yeah, I'm like literally every day. I'm
that
like,
out there, phones are
can
kind
we
of
go back to letters? I would do so much better. It would still take me like 2 months, but maybe I would feel more of an impetus to reach out because I'm not so like
yeah.
Wow, I don't mean to, I feel like I'm coming across like really weird right now.
No.
It's just sometimes, like things stack up. What, Charlie?
I said just the normal amount, but I tried to say it really under my breath, but then I got caught.
But then I said, what did you say?
Everyone's so sensitive to trying to listen to each other. I can do all my little spooky things. No, I
Oh my
don't.
gosh.
But yeah, Rishikesh, huge hero. He's great. And that's a cool TED Talk. That's a big TED Talk thing for us. I'm going to go through my the thing I added to the newsletter this week, kind of quickly, but basically there was another kind of Substack thing, or there was another article talking about um, how sensitive Miles Davis was about his speaking voice. So it's like I think everybody that's ever like any jazz musician, but like even like fans of jazz music and all that kind of stuff, and even very casual people have kind of done like some version of like the Miles Davis voice, or like the Louis Armstrong thing or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
kind of similar, but like apparently, and I don't know, this was news to me, but apparently like he was very sensitive about it, and Miles Davis was even considering like kind of like quitting being like a public figure or musician or someone who's kind of famous, because he was just kind of like so bummed out about it, or hurt,
Mm.
um, hurt kind of like by this kind of thing, or just felt like it was not cool. So, um, yeah, it says there's some liner notes from this album Blue Moods from Miles, that's written by Bill Cosson. It says the bother and anxiety about the growth in his throat had made the cat-like Miles speak and walk in such whispers that his always present kind of nose thumbing withdrawal seemed nearly complete. Um, and then later there's a thing from Leonard Feather that said he planned to give up performing altogether, but he was making specific plans about what he would do like in the living after music. It was just kind of crazy
Wow.
that I mean, so I think of Miles as just kind of like this like very like extremely confident figure, and like someone that was just kind of like even kind of like dominant over all these other people, and in kind of that in the scene and everything. And then to be, to I mean, this is always true, that this is a nuanced thing with like the people that we see kind of as something other, like something bigger than people, like these
Yeah.
famous people, or these people we idolize, or legends, or whatever. Um, it's hard to kind of imagine that they did this thing that seemed to change our life so much. Like they made this music or something that changed our lives, and like they write about in history books, but then like was also like a normal person that didn't just have these kind of like very caricature level flaws, like that have been kind of like blown out of proportion, or like just kind of like blown up and become like a huge physical, like a huge personality trait. Like um someone I think about is like Billie Holiday, where like people kind of like obsess about like drug use and like
Yeah.
some of the kind of more nefarious things, but it's like she's just a person who had like a really hard life, and she was doing things that like like basically everyone around her were also doing. Like all the dudes that were playing in those bands were like doing all the same thing, but it becomes like such a part of their like their
Identity.
persona and identity.
Mm.
Yeah. But it also kind of made me think about this idea that like the things that we think of as weaknesses of ours, or imperfections, or whatever that is, like could actually become like this like signature part of our aesthetic. And in this case, it's like for him it was not a super positive thing, but it's like it's something that kind of sets him apart. Like when you think, like you don't think about maybe, like I've never thought about John Coltrane's speaking voice, or like I've never really thought about him talking.
Yeah.
Um,
It's true.
but there's all these Miles Davis stories where it's just like, yeah, Miles came to me, he said, boop, bop, bibbit, babbit, that, that. It's like, oh, it's like, why did you stole this member of my band? He's like, that's what you do when you're on top. And it's like, it kind of, there's like, there's something to the sound of the voice that like, it adds like pathos to it or something, or like it adds some character to it.
Yeah. Kind of keeps him alive in a sense. You feel like closer to him weirdly. Like no one does a mile. Like whenever someone tells a Miles story, they have to like,
Yeah.
and they have to do the raspiness,
Yeah.
and it kind of like humanizes him in a sense, because sometimes those people can feel so far away.
Yeah. And I do think it is kind of like I've never done that in a way teasing him, because
No.
it seems ridiculous to think that like, oh, I'm gonna make Miles Davis feel bad. First of all, because he's not here, but also just because like, oh, that like he must be he's so beyond that any of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
or like or caring what I think or whatever. Or
Ugh, it exposes so much that thing of like, I just am so annoyed that people think they know other people, which is even harder when you're a figure like that because we do, like, I think about this all the time. I love the art so much that sometimes, I think we've talked about this before. I'm feeling deja vu. Just sometimes I feel like I forget about the human parts or I have to remind myself about the human parts because the art is so life changing to me that it's so easy to focus on that. But I also think a lot of people are just out here passing judgments when it's like, just spend your time doing other things because you don't know who they are at all.
Yeah.
Like, at all.
what you're saying? It's like it's not that deep or
Oh,
something.
yeah, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
Not that deep. I don't know. But then it is deep because, like, look at, yeah, whatever. People can be nasty.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I like hearing the Miles Davis stories and
I
then
love
people
them.
attempting to like sound like him.
Me too.
I love that. Um I don't
Well,
know. Yeah.
stories too kind of like hold together a lot of jazz.
Yeah, the like word of mouth
Mhm.
thing, which is I that like this is like totally going off topic, but that's one of the reasons I'm excited to live here is like get to know some of the or speak with some of the legends like Al Foster and like Frank Lacey, like Valery Ponomarev, and like just know the stories about
Mhm.
those people that we like just enjoy their music and how they were as a human. Like we do have the music, but they have like the human
Mhm.
because they were in those whole things. I don't know. Yeah. Never know.
Yeah, for
Never
real.
know.
Cool. Let's move on to new music this week. We have new music from Kenny Beats, Bram Masla, and the Joshua Redman Quartet. I've never said Brahms' last name out loud. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'll take the lead on this a little bit. So the first thing, Kenny Beats. Are either of you familiar with Kenny Beats?
I'm not.
Like producer,
No.
beat maker. Um, I was kind of talking to some of my students that are like kind of more production majors or they're kind of doing that kind of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, there's this do you know this person, Kenny Beats? There's this new album. And they're like, oh my God, you know who Kenny Beats is? Like, "Brr, brr, brr, Charlie, you're so lame. That's so surprising." And I was like,
What?
yeah. Um, but Kenny Beats has like I guess he's mostly and he's only basically been like collaborating with other people and this is his first kind of solo project thing.
Mm.
Um, but Pitchfork called it a dynamic record bursting with soul samples and complicated emotions.
Ooh.
But I really dug this. It's like a little, from my perspective, it's like a little bit of everything. And what's kind of cool is a lot of the tracks on this record are kind of like little vignettes. So they're kind of like a minute or 2 minutes long, and it kind of gives you like a little bit of a space or something. You're like, ooh, okay, that's kind of nice. And then it just kind of moves on to a different sort of thing. So it's pretty varied, which is cool. It's like it maybe leans slightly more kind of on the chill side of some of this stuff, which is like more kind of in my um like kind of more my speed in terms of like yeah yeah but it's cool and I totally dig it and there's some there's some heavy feelings about the so Kenny Beats kind of like made this album a little bit in kind of like for his father who was diagnosed with cancer and so like there there's definitely like a lot of there's definitely some deep stuff going on here. It's not just like here are 15 cool sick beats I made or something with some
Mm.
samples. There's some stuff there, so I recommend it. I thought it was pretty cool. The other thing that I had added to the list was the debut EP from we know him as a drummer, but he's a singer-songwriter, Bram Masla, and I think this EP is really great. I think
Yeah, it
everybody needs to
is.
check it out. It if you're into kind of like the Bon Iver thing or like any of that kind of zone where it's like a little bit maybe moodier or like atmospheric kind of stuff, I was just so impressed with like how much the music on this EP, and the EP is called "And We Were Names," but like how much the music on this kind of just like breathes and like takes its time to do what it wants to do and needs to
Yeah.
do. Like there's nothing that feels like, okay, there's this cool thing coming up, we're gonna like kind of rush to it. Um, so I don't know, I really dug it, and there's definitely some kind of different kinds of sounds on this, like kind of all over the, like it's pretty broad, I think, um, but it was kind of making me think of these other drummers that I really love that that are, have had really cool like singing songwriting careers, like S. Carey, who's the drummer for Bon Iver, and Father John Misty, who's the drummer for Fleet Foxes, and obviously Phil Collins, who was the drummer for the movie Tarzan. No, mostly known for Tarzan. But,
Tarzan.
but yeah, I thought it was really cool. We're maybe trying to put together a little interview with Brahm, which I think will
Yes.
be kind of cool. A little written interview for the Substack. So we'll see how that goes. But I was really impressed. I mean, I'd never heard anything like this from him before. So that
Yeah.
that was really cool. I don't did
I think
did you
Brahm
get a
is
chance?
awesome.
You got a chance to check this out?
Yeah.
Not the whole thing, for me a little bit.
I think it's very Brahm.
I was gonna say I think it's cool when someone who is so like themselves then makes art, because it's so awesome to experience kind of like the artistic version of, or
Yeah.
one of the iterations of, obviously art evolves, as
Yeah.
do we, but
It's like nice to see the different like facets of Brahm, because like he can like you said, it's very broad, but I think that's like the beauty of Brahm, that he's able to take these influences from all over and just make it into this coherent sound that is him. Um I don't know, and it felt very intimate. Like most of the tunes felt very intimate, and yeah, I was like, oh yeah, go Brahm. I don't know, how to describe it except for like Brahm. Like when you see Brahm and you walk up to him and gives you a hug, that's what his music feels like. You know?
Yeah, like genuine, generous, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Cool. And we also got some stuff from Joshua Redman.
Joshua Redman and Brad Mildau. And Christian McBride and Brian Blade. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Imagine. I know, I'm like, okay. Okay.
This is a live thing, right? Long Gone, or is it?
You know what?
Because I was actually listening to this today, and it was like there was clapping at some point, and I was like, oh, this is a live thing. I actually didn't know it until later on, but yeah, this is sorry, Alexandria, if I'm kind of like taking some of your
Go for it.
but this is this is kind of like the working quartet of Joshua Redman that like they've been touring for a little bit, right?
Yeah, this year, because they hadn't been on tour in like 20 years or something, 30 years.
Yeah.
And Brad Mildau does not play in the States, like almost rarely. So it was like a huge deal for him to be like touring in the States.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, so yeah, like I think at one point, Joshua Redman says like, yeah, we first played this tune in like 1992, like the first time we played together or whatever. It was like one of the songs, and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But also, I think a lot of these artists, of a lot of them as being like from the early 2000s kind of time, because that's when I was like really getting into jazz for the first time, and like Brad Maldau was like, my God, and um, the Joshua Redman stuff. There's this album called Elastic, which is like more like organ trio kind of a thing. It's like more of like groove based kind of stuff. But I think it has Brian Blade on it playing drums, but then it's like Larry Goldings or something playing organ and stuff. And it's like, and anyways, this is not what we're talking about right now. But I became obsessed with that album, and so like that, I'm like, oh, they're from that time. But it's like it's funny that they were, doing this kind of this thing for a much longer time. They must have been all babies when they were like playing together.
Yeah. And like this is like during the like hype of hip hop. you know?
Yeah.
Like they were playing this great music and they were like, I'm playing jazz. And they're not like, they're like hip hop. I'm playing jazz. I think that's so cool, especially like as young as they were. You would think like they would hop on the trend, but they're like, nah, like I'm proud and happy to be what I'm doing, and like they're killing it. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
Like traditional thing is like straight ahead jazz as kind of like counterculture. Like, no, we're gonna wear suits and we're gonna bow and stuff, and it's like we're crazy.
They're also open-minded and versatile too, like, which I think makes what they do stronger, because then anything they do has this like integrity attached to it.
Definitely.
Because they just are like very studied and informed in ways that are undeniable. Or I don't know, there's a better word there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Foolproof? I don't really know what the word is. I'm not happy with either of those words, but anyway.
Well,
they're awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that does it for new music. I actually already have some new music for next week that I'm really excited about
Yay.
talking a little bit about. But that's a cliffhanger. You're gonna have to listen to the podcast next week to know what the heck.
No, there's some good
Yeah.
stuff coming out.
Tune in, everyone.
Cool. You want to read us out, Amy?
I was gonna say, speaking of which, thanks for listening and supporting Foray Music. Remember to like and subscribe. And just a note that if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us a lot. And we'd love to read and highlight your comments on next week's show. For more, follow us on Instagram at Foray Music, subscribe to our newsletter at foraymusic.substack.com, and check out our website at foraymusic.com.
She had one job. John Legend.
I don't know like what that's from at all.
It's like definitely from a meme.
It's just like when you no, but it can be. It's so applicable. It's
Yeah.
like anytime you had to do just one thing and you didn't do it. Like this happens to me all the time.
That's me right now. She had one job. John Legend.
Okay, we think you're super. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Can we start the podcast?
I accidentally pressed leave meeting.
I'm out.
I'm shedding a tear.
Oh my gosh.
That was the break we needed. I was like so stressed about being late.
God.